My name is Carmen. I'm 32 years old. And this is the story of how my life unraveled quietly in the corners of my own home, until I uncovered everything, and finally took it all back. It started with a kindness that felt like a lie. For 10 years, my husband Logan and I had built a life together in a small Colorado town. 2 kids, Ella and Max. A part-time job at the local bookstore for me, and a steady maintenance job at the plant for him. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. A routine that survived time. Predictable. Reassuring. Logan was never the type to bring me flowers, but he changed the oil without me asking. He didn't write love notes, but he always fixed the dripping faucet. We had a rhythm, mundane, maybe, but familiar enough to mistake for love. So when that rhythm started shifting, I should have been relieved. I should have welcomed it. Instead, I felt like I was watching someone else wear my husband's skin. He began waking up early. The man who used to groan and curse every morning alarm was now making breakfast at dawn and tiptoeing so I could rest. He packed the kids' lunches, folded the laundry, cleaned the counters, humming, smiling, almost grateful. I didn't know what to do with that version of him. It wasn't like Logan. And yet, the warmth of it was dangerous. I started doubting myself, questioning whether my suspicions were just the rusted gears of an overworked mind. I told myself maybe he had turned a new leaf. Maybe the stress had cracked him open in a good way. Maybe, just maybe, he was trying to love me again. But then came the odd silences. The phone screen always faced down. The quiet laugh at a joke I wasn't in on. The hushed melody of a song he never used to like. Logan, once vocal about his disdain for soft indie nonsense, was now humming lyrics about sunlight and vanishing. Then Ella said the name. Miss Elisa. That name felt like stepping on glass in the dark. You don't see it coming, but it cuts deep. She has purple-pink hair, Ella said, braiding her doll's hair like it was nothing. She brings us cocoa with marshmallows. Daddy says she's fun. I froze. Where did you meet her, sweetheart? She comes over sometimes, Max chimed in. She has games on her phone. Daddy says Mommy doesn't need to know. The room spun. I smiled, for the kids. But inside me, something split. That night, I asked Logan. Elisa? He didn't even flinch. Probably one of the assistant teachers. Purple hair? Tattoos? Brings cocoa? He shrugged. Kids make stuff up. I wanted to scream, but I just bit the inside of my cheek. Later that week, I confirmed through a friend at Ella's school there was no Elisa. No one by that name worked there. No volunteer. No substitute. Elisa wasn't from school. She was from him. The illusion shattered on a Saturday. Logan was out, supposedly shopping. I was packing for Ella's birthday party, hunting through the pickup truck for the cooler. That's when I found it, a second phone. No lock. No case. And on it, her. Elisa. The messages weren't just flirtation. They were full-blown dreams of escape. Of living together. Of blaming me for being tired. For being a burden. I just feel alive when I'm with you, one message read. I took screenshots. Every one. Even the photos. Logan and Elisa in the park. The kids in the background. He'd brought her near our children. When he got home, I placed the phone on the kitchen table. He looked at it. Then at me. No denial. Just a sigh. I was going to tell you, he muttered. I just didn't know how. You found time to let her into our lives, I said. But not to talk to your wife? He shook his head like I was unreasonable. Like I was the problem. You're always heavy, Carmen. You drain people. Elisa just made it easier to breathe. The moment he said her name like that, so casual, so practiced, something snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just turned, packed a bag for the kids, and walked out of our home. My sister Chloe picked us up in under 30 minutes. No questions. Just open arms. That night, I filed the first bank transfer. Changed the passwords. Started the clock on a life without him. And that was just the beginning. Chloe's spare room became our temporary world, a haven painted in faded lavender and old posters from her college days. There were 2 twin beds pushed against opposite walls, one for Ella, one for Max. I slept on a blow-up mattress in the middle, a mother forming a human bridge between innocence and devastation. The first night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling while my children breathed softly beside me, the glow of Max's dinosaur nightlight flickering faintly. Chloe had left a steaming cup of tea on the nightstand, and a handwritten note that simply read, "You don't owe him your silence anymore." It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the humiliating realization that I had become invisible in my own life. The next morning, I dropped Ella and Max off at school as if nothing had changed. I wore a steady smile, made jokes about pancakes, kissed their foreheads. But the moment they were inside, I walked back to the car and sat there, motionless, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to the earth. My phone buzzed. Logan. What are you doing, Carmen? This is insane. Come home. Another buzz. We can work this out. I never wanted to hurt you. Then, as if flipping a switch, the tone turned venomous. You took my kids without permission. That's kidnapping. I didn't reply. But my hands were shaking. I hadn't expected him to weaponize the children so fast. I knew Logan was selfish, I just didn't realize how cruel he could be when cornered. That evening, I sat down with Chloe and opened my laptop. It was time to call a lawyer. I don't want to destroy him, I whispered. I just want to protect myself, and the kids. Chloe, always the fire to my water, leaned in and said, "You're not destroying anyone. You're finally defending yourself." The lawyer I found was a woman named Dana Maxwell, stern, brilliant, and not one to tolerate nonsense. When I told her everything, the second phone, the unsupervised visits from Elisa, the lies, she didn't blink. "This is emotional manipulation and a boundary breach," she said. "But we're going to take the facts and build your case brick by brick. No yelling. No chaos. Just truth." I gave her everything. Screenshots, text logs, my journal notes, even the report from Ella's teacher when Logan showed up unannounced at school asking to take her home early. That had happened the day after we left, and it terrified me. That night, I got another message from Logan. "You're poisoning them against me. They're my kids too." I stared at the screen, numb. 2 hours later, Logan's mother called. June had always treated me like I was a fragile inconvenience, polite on holidays, cold the rest of the year. This time, she played sweet. "I heard there's been a little misunderstanding," she cooed. "Ma'am," I replied, "he cheated. And he brought that woman around my children. That's not a misunderstanding." There was a pause. Then she sighed. "Carmen, don't make this worse than it is. We all make mistakes." Mistakes? Would you call it a mistake if someone snuck around your marriage, lied to your face, and played stepmom to your grandchildren behind your back? June's voice turned icy. "You've always been dramatic." Click. I hung up. 15 minutes later, I received a group message. Me. June. Nicole, Logan's sister. Nicole, who once called me family. The first message read, "You're tearing this family apart. Logan hasn't eaten. You just walked away without giving him a chance." I didn't reply with words. I replied with screenshots. Pictures of Logan and Elisa. The text messages. The evidence. Underneath, I wrote, "This is who you're defending. Don't ask me to pretend anymore." The group went silent. For a moment, I let myself hope that silence meant shame. But I wasn't done preparing. The next morning, I went to the kids' school and updated their pickup permissions. I listed myself, Chloe, and my parents. Logan's name was removed. The receptionist raised her eyebrows but nodded respectfully. "We've had a few incidents," I explained gently. "I just want to be cautious." "Of course," she said. That caution proved wise. The next day, Ella's teacher called in a panic. "Miss Carmen, Logan came this morning and said he was here to take Ella to a doctor's appointment. He got aggressive when we said no." My stomach dropped. I thanked her, hung up, and immediately added it to the file I was building for Dana. I logged every interaction, every message, every visit, every moment he tried to manipulate the situation or weaponize his sadness to make me look unstable. That weekend, Logan showed up at Chloe's driveway. Again. I was outside watering the herb pots with Ella when I saw the truck. He leaned against the door, hands in his pockets, eyes bloodshot. "I just want to talk," he said. I moved in front of Ella instinctively. "You've said enough. Don't act like I'm dangerous," he snapped. "I just want to see my kids. You showed up unannounced. You lied to me for months. You had someone else around my children without permission. If you want access, talk to my lawyer." His voice dropped. "You really going to play the court card, Carmen?" I stepped back toward the front door. "If you follow me again," I said calmly, "I'll file a restraining order." I wasn't bluffing. I made good on that threat. I filed the paperwork on Monday. The kids didn't understand. Ella cried. Max stayed silent. But I held them both and said, "This isn't your fault. And it's not because I'm mad. It's because I love you enough to protect you." They believed me. And I believed myself. For the first time in a long while. The courthouse was colder than I expected, not physically, but in the way it made people shrink. I saw couples who once swore eternal love now sitting with crossed arms and clenched jaws, lawyers whispering battle strategies like generals before war. Logan arrived 10 minutes late, wearing a wrinkled gray suit and a pathetic attempt at a remorseful expression. His hair was messy, like he'd slept in his truck. He walked in with his lawyer, a smug man with sharp eyes and the kind of smile that smelled like manipulation. Behind Logan sat June, tight-lipped, hands gripping her purse. Nicole wasn't there. I don't know if that was a blessing or a deeper betrayal. My attorney, Dana, didn't flinch once. She handed me a warm glance, then stood as the judge entered the room. What followed wasn't an explosion, it was a quiet, calculated presentation of truth. Logan's side went first. His lawyer painted a picture of a husband abandoned, confused, emotionally abused. He claimed Logan came home to a cold, unaffectionate wife, that I relocated the children without proper legal notice, and that I was attempting to alienate their father from their lives. He even slipped in the words emotional instability, citing my sudden departure and erratic communication. I almost laughed. But Dana gripped my hand under the table. "Stay calm. We've got more than enough." Then Dana stood, and everything changed. She began with a single photo, Logan and Elisa sitting on a park bench, her head on his shoulder, my children visible in the background. She methodically laid out the timeline, the second phone, the texts, the secret visits, the unapproved pickups, the school report. Every message had a timestamp. Every document matched. She concluded with the incident where Logan tried to take Ella from school without notice. She handed over the incident report filed by the school administrator. The judge read in silence, his eyes narrowing. Then he asked the question that finally cracked Logan's facade. "Mr. Bennett, do you know a woman named Elisa?" Logan shifted in his chair. "Yes, she's a friend." "Do you confirm she interacted with your children without the knowledge or consent of their mother?" Logan opened his mouth. Closed it. Then nodded. Yes. But. No but, Mr. Bennett. Silence fell like a guillotine. The judge leaned back. It's not just the affair, though it speaks to character. It's the exposure of minors to a non-vetted adult, your breach of custodial trust, and your failure to disclose this involvement. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked down at my folded hands and felt the slow thrum of justice, like water rising after a drought. The ruling was swift. Primary custody, me. Supervised visitation, Logan, every other weekend, at a neutral center. Finances, marital assets to be split fairly, but all personal savings, earnings, and gifts outside of shared accounts were deemed individually owned. Spousal support, none. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want his money, just peace. After court, Logan stormed out. June didn't speak to me. She brushed past me like I was invisible. But as I walked down the courthouse steps, I felt something strange settle into my chest, not triumph, not even closure, just space. Space where shame used to sit. Space where fear used to whisper. That night, Chloe poured me a glass of wine. So, what now? I stared out her kitchen window, watching Max chase fireflies with Ella in the backyard. Now, I said, we start over. We stayed with Chloe for a few more weeks. During that time, I found a small 2-bedroom apartment in the quiet part of town. Nothing fancy, but it had a view of the hills, a balcony with enough space for a planter, and warm morning light that poured through the windows like forgiveness. Ella picked the lavender curtains. Max insisted on a dinosaur lamp. And for the first time since everything collapsed, I heard laughter echo through our walls that didn't carry a hidden ache. I returned to part-time work at the bookstore. My boss, an older woman named Jean, welcomed me back with a hug that lingered a little longer than expected. We missed you, she said. And the kids? They're learning how to smile again, I replied. One Friday afternoon, I was shelving books when a familiar face walked in. Long brown hair. Sunglasses. A silence that buzzed louder than a scream. Elisa. She walked straight to the children's section, picked out 2 books, and came to the counter. I scanned them wordlessly. Just before I could hand her the bag, she looked up and said, quietly, "You're Carmen, aren't you?" I froze. Yes. She nodded. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I raised an eyebrow. I just wanted you to know. I didn't know the truth. He told me you were separated, that you were cruel, that you didn't want him anymore. I believed him. I stayed silent. She continued, her voice shaking. I didn't realize the kids were involved until Max asked if I was his new teacher. I stepped away after that. I left everything. I gave her the bag. You didn't just hurt me, Elisa. You got close to my children. That's something I'll never understand. She nodded again. I know. I'm sorry. And then she walked away. No drama. No tears. Just a woman leaving the scene of her own mistake, knowing the fire she helped light had already burned down the house. I stood behind the register for a long time after she left. I didn't feel better. But I felt cleaner. Like finally breathing in air that wasn't laced with lies. That night, while putting Max to bed, he showed me a drawing he made at school. It was of me, reading a book to him and Ella. There was no dad in the picture. Just a bookshelf and 3 stick figures. Underneath it, in his careful 6-year-old handwriting, it read, "Mom is brave." I kissed his forehead and tucked him in. My hands shook. Not from pain. But from the overwhelming responsibility of raising 2 small hearts in the aftermath of heartbreak. But I was ready. I had already walked through the fire. And I was still standing. Some people walk away quietly. Others leave claw marks on every inch of your peace. Logan was the latter. After the custody ruling, he went dark for a week. No calls. No messages. I started to believe, maybe foolishly, that he had finally accepted the new reality, that our lives had forked, and mine would never run alongside his again. But then came the pity parade. Late one night, I got a text. I can't eat. Can't sleep. I lost my family. Is that what you wanted? The next night. I'm broken. Hope you're happy. You destroyed me. At first, I didn't respond. I told myself it wasn't my job to fix the man who shattered our lives. But then, the guilt crept in, the same old reflex, trained from years of gaslighting and emotional manipulation. So I typed a single message. You lost your family the moment you invited someone else into it. I'm just cleaning up the mess. I hit send, then blocked the number. But Logan wasn't finished. He started reaching out to my friends, messaging coworkers, even commenting under old Facebook posts. Passive-aggressive lines like, "Some people move on too fast," or "Funny how the villain always gets to write the story." He wanted an audience. And when he didn't get one, he tried to barge back into mine. That weekend, while Ella was at a sleepover and Max was playing with Chloe's dog in the yard, Logan pulled up to the apartment. He didn't knock. He stood at the bottom of the steps, shouting my name like a scene from a bad movie. Carmen. You can't keep pretending I don't exist. I peeked through the blinds. Chloe was already on the phone with the police. Logan's shouting continued. You're turning the kids against me. You're not the only parent. Max came running in from outside, confused. Why is Dad yelling? I knelt and held his shoulders. Because some people don't know how to let go. But it's not your fault. Okay? Max nodded slowly, eyes wide. The police arrived 10 minutes later. Logan was told to leave. Again. I documented everything, the time, the place, the witness report. When I spoke to Dana the next day, she didn't mince words. We need to push for full custody. No visitation without court approval. I swallowed. Will the judge go for that? With what we have? They'd be negligent not to. I hated that it had come to this. But I hated more that Logan's presence was becoming a threat rather than a comfort to our children. A week passed. Then 2. No Logan. No Elisa. Not even June. I thought the storm had passed until I got a letter in the mail. A formal notice from Logan's new attorney. He was contesting the custody agreement. Again. In the filing, he claimed I was alienating the children, manipulating their emotions, and damaging their relationship with their father. He even included a vague mental health concern, referencing my overreactions and erratic behavior. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud, alone in my kitchen, reading it. Then I cried. Because the war wasn't over, and I was exhausted. I called Dana. I don't want to fight forever, I said. I just want to be done. I know, she replied. But the sooner we push through this next step, the sooner you'll have that peace. So we prepared. I dug up every incident log. The school report. The texts. The screenshots. Witness statements from Chloe, from Ella's teacher, even from the bookstore manager who once had to walk me to my car because Logan was parked across the street. And then came the bombshell, Elisa resurfaced. She called Dana directly. Left a voicemail. I don't know if this matters anymore, but I want to testify. I want to tell the court what Logan told me, the lies, the manipulation. I didn't know the full story until I saw the kids. Until Max asked if I was his new mommy. Dana played it for me. You want to include this, she asked. I hesitated. Then nodded. Yes. If he wants to fight dirty, we'll show the dirt he's buried us in. 2 weeks later, we went back to court. This time, Logan looked smaller. Not physically. Spiritually. Like a man who had built his entire argument on a fantasy and was now trying to sell it as reality. Elisa testified via video. She looked straight into the camera and told the judge everything. How Logan said we were already separated. How he brought the kids around without hesitation. How he insisted I was cold, uncaring, unworthy of affection. And yet, she said, voice trembling, the moment I met Max and Ella, I knew something was off. They talked about their mother like she was their world. It broke my heart. Then she said the line that sealed it. He didn't want someone to love him. He wanted someone who wouldn't call out his lies. The judge was silent for a long time after that. Then he turned to Logan and said, Mr. Bennett, the court no longer sees confusion. It sees patterns. Manipulation. Deceit. And most dangerously, a willingness to use your children as pawns in your personal conflict. A new order was issued. Full physical and legal custody, me. Supervised visitation, suspended indefinitely. All communication to go through a court-appointed liaison. I walked out of that courtroom holding back tears, not out of sadness, but because I could finally exhale. It was over. Or at least, the part where Logan got to control the narrative. The next day, I changed the locks. The day after that, I changed my last name. Not for revenge. For clarity. For myself. That night, I took Ella and Max out for burgers and milkshakes. Nothing fancy. Just us, a booth, and a jukebox playing oldies. Ella reached across the table, grabbing my hand. Mommy, she said, you feel like sunshine again. I smiled through my tears. Not because I was finally happy. But because, for the first time in a long time, I knew I was free. Freedom doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it shows up as silence, the kind that wraps around your shoulders at 2 a.m. when no one's texting to guilt trip you, when no car is parked across the street, when no phone is ringing with accusations masked as apologies. That's what it felt like after the final court ruling. For the first time in months, I could breathe in my own home without waiting for the next storm. The court had made its decision. Logan was legally bound to stay away unless supervised and approved. The messages stopped. The appearances ended. It was like someone finally locked the door from the inside. And I was the one holding the key. But peace isn't the absence of noise, it's learning how to live after the chaos. Some days, that looked like Max crawling into bed with me because he had a nightmare, and I wasn't sure if it was about monsters or memories. Other days, it looked like Ella coloring quietly in the living room and drawing our little family as just 3 stick figures instead of 4. I never told her to. She just knew. There was healing in the little things. Saturday morning pancakes. Bedtime books. Grocery store trips where I didn't glance over my shoulder. I started writing again, journaling not just the pain but the quiet victories. Like the time Max forgot how to spell Logan's name. Like the day Ella told her teacher that Aunt Chloe is funny, but Mom is the bravest. And then there were the echoes, subtle, unshakable. Like when I found Max crying behind the couch because he remembered how Logan used to yell when toys were left on the floor. Or when Ella asked me why she hadn't seen her Grandma June in a while, and if it was because she did something wrong. I took her tiny hands and said, "No, baby. Grown-ups sometimes forget how to love the right way. That's not your fault." She nodded slowly, her eyes a little older than they should have been. I wish I could say June reached out. That Nicole apologized. That anyone from Logan's family had the decency to check in, ask if the children were okay. But silence, that was all they gave us. The kind of silence that tells you they were never really on your side, only his. And then one day, in the middle of folding laundry, I got a call from Dana. "Carmen," she said, "you're entitled to apply for permanent custody and terminate Logan's parental rights if the behavior continues." I stood there, holding a tiny t-shirt in my hands, and realized something: I no longer wanted to fight. I didn't need vengeance. I just wanted distance, a permanent line drawn in ink, not sand. I told Dana I'd think about it. That weekend, I took the kids to visit my parents, the first time in months. My dad, who rarely expressed much emotion, held Max on his lap while watching cartoons. My mom made soup. Chloe brought over paint sets for the kids. The house smelled like garlic and history. Over dinner, my dad finally asked what I'd been waiting for. "Do you regret leaving him?" I looked at Ella, her mouth full of mashed potatoes, then at Max, who was humming to himself, flicking peas at a napkin like it was a target. "No," I said. "I regret not leaving sooner." He nodded once. Then passed me the salt. I slept better that night than I had in years. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. I was working a quiet afternoon shift at the bookstore when a woman walked in with dark sunglasses and hesitant steps. She browsed for a while before making her way to the register with 2 books, one about forgiveness and the other a children's story called The Invisible String. It was Elisa. Again. But this time, she didn't speak. She placed the books down, waited for me to scan them, and just before I handed them back, she said softly, "I know I said I wouldn't reach out again. But I needed you to know." She looked around, eyes glassy. "I'm pregnant. It's not Logan's. It's someone else. I moved out of town. I'm rebuilding. And I know I don't deserve peace from you, but I hope you find yours." I nodded. No anger. No forgiveness either. Just understanding. That we were both casualties of the same man, in different ways. "I hope you're right," I said. She left. And I never saw her again. That night, I found one of Ella's drawings on the kitchen table. It was our new apartment. 3 stick figures again. Me in the center, holding both their hands. And above us? A sun with a smiling face. I couldn't stop the tears. Not because I was sad. Because somehow, after all the pain, we were still standing, not just surviving, but forming something new. Something better. Something whole. It had been nearly 2 months since I'd heard from Logan. 2 months of silence. 2 months of breath returning to my lungs without warning signs. Of tucking the kids in without checking the locks twice. Of walking into the world without feeling like I owed someone an explanation. I began to think maybe, finally, the dust had settled. Then I got a knock at the door. It was a Tuesday morning. Max was watching cartoons in his dinosaur pajamas, and I was making toast while Ella read quietly on the couch. When I opened the door, a courier stood there with a thick manila envelope. "For Carmen Bennett?" I blinked. My hands instinctively pulled the robe tighter around me. "Yes. That's me." As soon as he left, I peeled open the seal, slowly, carefully, already sensing the poison inside. It was a petition. Filed by Logan. He was requesting a formal motion for shared custody. I nearly dropped the envelope. It wasn't just a filing. It was an ambush. A declaration that he still believed he had a say in our lives, after everything. Attached were statements. New ones. From people I hadn't expected. Logan's cousin, who hadn't seen the kids in 5 years. His coworker, claiming Logan talked about his children every day. Even June had provided a written statement that said I was intentionally depriving a devoted father of his parental rights. I sat down, shaking. The gall. The arrogance. The audacity. It wasn't about the kids, not really. It was about control. About pride. About the illusion he was trying to maintain in front of a shrinking audience. I called Dana. Her voice was calm. Measured. "This is retaliation, Carmen. We'll respond. But more importantly, we'll end this. Permanently." The next few weeks blurred into legal meetings, statements, assembling old and new evidence. I resubmitted the report from Ella's school, the screenshots from the secret phone, Elise's testimony, and detailed logs of every unauthorized appearance Logan had made since the ruling. But this time, I added something new. A written statement from Ella's pediatric therapist. It wasn't something I had talked much about, not even to Chloe, but shortly after the last court decision, I'd enrolled Ella in child therapy. Quietly. Privately. She had started grinding her teeth at night, waking up sweaty, flinching when doors slammed. The therapist, after weeks of building trust, had written a clinical letter outlining elevated anxiety directly connected to paternal exposure. It was sobering. Heartbreaking. But necessary. At the next hearing, I arrived calm and prepared. Logan sat across from me, not with guilt in his eyes, but fire. That look of someone who couldn't believe he had lost control. Like he still expected to win simply because he'd once been in charge. Dana stood and spoke plainly. This is not a custody battle. It's a campaign of harassment. My client has been stalked, emotionally manipulated, and gaslit. The children have been used as leverage. And now, with no new merit, this motion seeks to undo what the court already resolved. Then she submitted the therapist's report. The room went still. The judge read it slowly, line by line, and when he finally looked up, he didn't address Dana or me. He looked directly at Logan. Do you understand that this is no longer just about what you want? These children have rights. They deserve safety. Stability. Peace. Logan clenched his jaw. Said nothing. The judge continued, and you've disrupted that peace long enough. Then came the final ruling, spoken in clean, decisive language. Parental rights terminated. Permanently. No more visits. No more filings. No more power. Legally, he was no longer their father. Logan's mouth opened slightly. He didn't speak. He didn't protest. He just stared down at the table as if the world had finally told him what he refused to believe: you lost. You did this to yourself. I didn't look at him. I looked ahead, at the courtroom doors. The way out. Outside, Chloe was waiting with the kids. Max ran into my arms like nothing had happened. Can we get waffles? He asked, wiping his nose. Waffles sound perfect, I said, blinking fast. Ella held my hand a little tighter than usual. That night, I watched them sleep in our tiny apartment, curled up under superhero blankets, surrounded by books and crayon drawings. And for the first time since the unraveling began, I allowed myself to hope. That maybe our lives wouldn't be defined by what we escaped, but by what we rebuilt. The next day, I donated every old photo of Logan. The wedding albums. The family portraits. Even the picture Ella once kept in a frame by her bed. She didn't notice it was gone. Or maybe, she didn't care anymore. Later that week, my boss Jean approached me at work. We're opening a second location downtown, she said. I want you to manage it. I blinked. Me? You're calm under pressure, you show up when no one else does, and everyone here already thinks of you as a leader. It's yours if you want it. I took a deep breath. A year ago, I was a ghost in my own house. A woman losing herself to quiet betrayal. Now, I was building something again. Not just a job. Not just a home. A life. I'd be honored, I said. That night, after the kids were asleep, I opened my old journal, the one I started during the worst nights, when Logan's voice echoed in every hallway and my reflection looked like a stranger. And I wrote. He doesn't get to define me anymore. Not as a woman. Not as a mother. Not as a story. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes, when you've been through hell and back, it speaks in the softest moments. A quiet breakfast with your children. Laughter echoing in rooms that used to be filled with tension. A Saturday morning where no part of you is bracing for a fight. That was my life now. Logan's rights had been terminated. The court had spoken. And for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't living in reaction to someone else's lies. I was creating. Choosing. Breathing. Ella and Max were healing too, in their own small, brave ways. Max stopped flinching when men raised their voices at the park. Ella no longer asked if her dad would come back, she just started calling Chloe our second mommy, like it was the most natural thing in the world. One night, while folding laundry, Ella came into my room in her pajamas, holding a piece of notebook paper. She handed it to me with a proud smile. It was a drawing. Me. Her. Max, Chloe. And even Grandma and Grandpa. We were standing outside our little apartment building, under a big sun. And next to me, she had written in bold purple crayon. My mom is everything. I stared at those 4 words until the letters blurred. I wasn't the perfect mother. I had cried in secret, yelled when I shouldn't have, and doubted myself more nights than I could count. But I had never abandoned them. Never brought chaos to their door. Never made them feel like second place. And somehow, they knew. That weekend, I took them out for a picnic at a quiet state park near Boulder. Chloe came too. We packed sandwiches and juice boxes and a second-hand kite from a thrift store. The sky was impossibly blue, the kind of color you forget exists when you've spent too long indoors trying to survive. The kids ran up a hill with Chloe, the kite dancing behind them, catching gusts of wind like it had something to prove. I sat alone for a moment on the blanket, my arms wrapped around my knees, watching them. And I whispered, this is the life I fought for. No luxury. No Instagram version of happiness. Just this, wind in the trees, laughter that belonged to me again, and a heart no longer cracked open from betrayal. After the picnic, on the ride home, Chloe turned to me and asked, what are you going to do now? I paused. I'm going to buy us a home. She raised an eyebrow. Wait, really? I nodded. I had been saving quietly for months. Working 2 jobs, bookstore manager and weekend rideshare driver. Cutting corners, refusing to dip into anything that wasn't mine. The court didn't grant me alimony, and I didn't want it anyway. Every penny I earned since leaving Logan had been mine. Now it was time to turn those pennies into permanence. A month later, I signed the lease on a small, 2-bedroom cottage on the edge of town. Hardwood floors. A tiny porch. A little garden box in front that Max immediately claimed as his dinosaur dig site. When we moved in, Ella stood in her new room, looking out the window. It smells like trees, she whispered. I smiled. That's because we don't have old walls anymore. We have new beginnings. The final box I unpacked was a small one. Taped shut with old masking tape. Inside were photos, some torn, some faded. I picked up a wedding picture of Logan and me. We were smiling, holding hands. That fake kind of happiness you paste on for the camera when you're already unraveling behind the scenes. I walked it outside. And dropped it in the trash. No ceremony. No fire. Just gone. Because some goodbyes don't deserve a ritual. Just a clean exit. 3 months after moving in, Ella's teacher sent home a class assignment. Who is your hero? She wrote. My hero is my mom because she never gives up, even when people are mean or leave. She holds my hand and makes me strong. When I grow up, I want to be brave like her. I didn't cry when I read it. I wept. Because I hadn't just survived Logan. I had survived the slow erosion of self-worth. The lies that sneak in under the disguise of routine. The years I spent shrinking myself to keep the peace. And now, I was showing my children how to live with their full hearts, even after someone tried to break them. So here's what I know. If you're reading this and you've ever been told you're too much or not enough, If someone ever tried to shrink you into a version of yourself that made them feel bigger, leave. Even if your hands shake. Even if your voice trembles. Leave. Not because it's easy. But because peace is not a luxury. It's your birthright. And if they call you a villain in their story? Let them. Because while they're busy rewriting fiction, you'll be out there, building the life you always deserved. One page at a time. Carmen's journey was not about revenge. It was about reclaiming her voice after years of being silenced. She didn't burn down her past, she simply stopped living in it. What would you have done in Carmen's place? Was she too harsh? Or was her decision the only way forward? Let us know in the comments below, and if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded. You are not weak for walking away. You are powerful for surviving. Don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Echoes, where stories speak louder than revenge.